What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Gen B. I'm your host, Zoomer Cincy, and today's going to be the first episode of what I just call thoughts. I'm pretty much just going to be rambling about what I've been thinking about recently, and I kind of established this outlet as a place for me to just kind of journal my thoughts and writings and see how they change and evolve over time. And so I'm just going to go ahead and get into it while you guys look at the state of the Bitcoin network. While I talk, I'm at mempool.space for people that don't know what this is. It's basically just taking a look at the state of the Bitcoin network at the moment. You can see recently confirmed blocks, transactions waiting to be mined, what the fee rates are right now. And so I'm just going to talk, let you guys look at this. Not really ready to dox my face on this channel yet, but maybe in the future, So I'm just going to get into it. A lot of this is going to be focused on economics, monetary policy, and politics, about what's going on right now. And so I'm just going to go ahead and get into it. I'm going to start on the economic side of things because we have kind of transitioned out of quantitative tightening, and we're going into another era of quantitative easing. This has kind of begun on a small scale so far. So you have the Fed now expanding its balance sheet again, which is stimulatory, which is inflationary. And you also have the Fed buying mortgage bonds by the direction of the president, Donald Trump. He's doing this because he wants to lower mortgage rates for people to be able to afford a mortgage, a 50-year mortgage probably, because they're definitely not going to be able to afford a house after prices skyrocket. Usually when interest rates go down, that means houses get more expensive. But people will be able to afford it because there will be 50-year mortgages and you'll be in debt for your entire life. So, that's a new development. He's also trying to cap credit card rates. He came out this week and said that he was going to cap credit card rates at like 10 or 11%. I'm no legal expert by any means, but I'm pretty sure that the president doesn't have the authority to tell private businesses what interest rates they charge on their credit cards or anything for that matter. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I actually didn't have this on my list, but also today, this was yesterday, the Federal Reserve and Jerome Powell were issued with subpoenas. I believe from the Department of Justice. So that's going to be interesting and a historic fight between the Federal Reserve and the federal government. Even though the Federal Reserve has the word federal in its name, it is a private bank owned by public banks, publicly traded banks, which are still private businesses. But the whole point of the Federal Reserve has historically been to be independent from the government and to conduct monetary policy as they see fit, whether that has been in the best interest of the American people and whether that has actually benefited the American people is definitely up for debate. But this is a historic thing that's happening, not only from like an optics perspective, but just that we've never seen a battle like this before between the government and the Federal Reserve. Obviously, Trump wants interest rates to come down. There's probably a few reasons why he wants them to come down. He wants them to come down to ease the burden on the people who will be voting in midterms soon. So he wants normal, everyday people that run businesses to have lower rates, which is inflationary. But also the federal government, if you haven't noticed, they're a little over $38 trillion in debt. And that debt has interest, and they can't afford the interest. I think there was some crazy stat, like before the Fed started lowering rates, that the interest expense was higher than our military expense, and that it pretty much that alone exceeded our tax receipts. So, yeah, the federal government cannot afford their interest. The only way they can pay their interest is by printing more money, which causes them to go more in debt, which causes them to actually have to pay more interest down the road. So, yeah, it's a pretty interesting scenario that they're in. One could call it a Ponzi scheme. I would call it that personally. But yeah, so there's a lot of reasons why interest rates need to come down from the eyes of the federal government and the president. And yeah, a lot of inflationary things happening. And the Fed is trying to hold kind of the optics together, that it's independent and that it's acting in the best interest of the American people and to keep inflation under control. But everything I'm seeing right now is pointing to more inflation, which leads me to the next thing on my list, which is that Trump announced he wants the military budget to go from 1 trillion to 1.5 trillion. So maybe some of those savings on the interest payments are just going directly into our military budget. I mean, this is kind of absurd. We've already seen that there's so much fraud happening in all facets of government, but especially in the military. The Pentagon has never passed an audit ever. Hundreds of millions, billions, hundreds of billions of dollars unaccounted for. Yet the focus here is to increase the budget by 50%, which is $500 billion. That's just absurd to me. But hey, what do I know? I don't work in the Pentagon, so yeah, I'll leave it at that. Another thing I've been thinking about is just this is kind of an economics topic as well, but metals outperforming Bitcoin in 2025 pretty hugely. Gold and silver are on historic runs at the moment, and we've seen Bitcoin kind of pull back and I wouldn't really call it a bear market, even though we're down like 25%, but it compared to the gold market, it's down more than 25% if you price in gold. And it's not really moving with gold, which a lot of people would have kind of expected that it would. And it's not like the stock market's down and you can be like, oh, NASDAQ's down. You know, a lot of people trade Bitcoin with NASDAQ. No, it's just kind of decoupled from other assets. And it's not performed as well as those other assets. There's been a lot of flows in the Bitcoin market. There have been whales selling spot and going into ETFs, or selling spot and doing God knows what. We don't know who those people are, but we have seen massive flows in the Bitcoin market that appear to be like people taking profit. So, yeah, I would expect, this is obviously not a prediction or not financial advice, but just my own expectations are that Bitcoin will outperform gold over the next 5 years. You know, when gold runs like this, you'll see all sorts of things in the mining industry where it now becomes economic for people to go get more gold out of the ground. If it costed me $100 to go get a certain gold deposit out of the ground, but it would profit $50 in gold once I got it out of the ground, well, then it doesn't make sense for me to go get that gold. But when gold goes on a historic run like this, and I would profit $150 from going to get that gold, which would cost me $100 to go get out of the ground, then it's now economic for me to do that. And what happens then is the supply of gold increases faster than it was increasing before, which drives the price down, and that's called elastic. That's called an elastic supply-demand relationship. Whereas Bitcoin, you know, it could run 1,000%, and you're not going to be able to get more Bitcoin out of the time chain, as we're seeing right here. If blocks started coming in faster, the network would adjust. And that's called an inelastic supply-demand relationship, meaning that if the price of the asset, Bitcoin, goes up a lot, you cannot pull more of it out of the time chain. So we have a fixed supply schedule. I think, I'm not going to sit here and just explain the technicalities of Bitcoin, but I think Bitcoin's in a really good spot. Everything around the world that's happening right now is bullish for Bitcoin. The properties of Bitcoin have remained unchanged. It keeps on producing more blocks and allowing people to transact sovereignly. And I personally can't think of a better asset to store my time and energy and value in right now. So yeah, I'm pretty bullish on Bitcoin, honestly. Over the short to medium term. I'm not necessarily bearish on the precious metals, but typically when you see gold and silver run like this, they go into sometimes multi-decade consolidations. So if you're feeling FOMO on gold and you hold Bitcoin, if it was me, I wouldn't be selling my Bitcoin for gold. That's all I'm going to say about that. Again, not financial advice, but these are just my thoughts. Which kind of leads me to treasury companies. Treasury companies have been getting eviscerated. The only treasury company disclaimer that I hold shares in is MicroStrategy, and I have for a few years now. I think I'm not going to go into all the others at the moment, but I think Strategy is probably one of the most undervalued companies on the face of the planet. I think that it's inevitable that it will be the most valuable company in the world at some point. I don't think anyone's catching their Bitcoin stack. I think that like 0.0001% of the market understands what Saylor's doing with the preferred share classes right now. And I think that he could end up being some kind of Bitcoin central bank insurance, like Bank of England type entity at some point in the future. Like, I don't even really know if operating business is like the best term for where this is heading. Like, I think he's going to be the hub of the Bitcoin financial world. And a lot of Bitcoiners hate credit products, credit money. But if there is going to be credit on top of Bitcoin, I think that Strategy is going to dominate that space. And the market for that, when priced in dollars, is pretty fucking massive. So yeah, I'm pretty bullish on Strategy. As long as they can continue to increase the Bitcoin per common share, then over the long term, I think that this can outperform Bitcoin. Now he is still printing MicroStrategy shares to do that, so the market cap of the company is going to go up by more than the price of the common stock. But I think the price of the common stock will still outperform Bitcoin as long as he continues to increase Bitcoin per share, which the management team's been pretty clear and laser focused on that mission. So yeah, just kind of wanted to throw that in there. I've never ever seen the sentiment around Strategy this bad before, and with the price down like 65%, I'm feeling pretty bullish on Strategy too. I've been doubling, tripling down on my Strategy position, which is less than a tenth of my Bitcoin position, and I would recommend, at least have your Bitcoin stack be 10x your Strategy stack or whatever equity that you're stacking. That's what I do. Not financial advice, but that's just what I'm doing. Politics. What am I thinking about politics right now? Well, I think that we're seeing military aggression at a pace not seen in my lifetime since the invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan, which was pretty early on in my lifetime. Although the military operations taking place around the world right now are a little bit different in most areas. It kind of feels like to me that the global order, which is, if you want to call it an order, which has been in place since the Second World War, is completely decaying, and everyone is realizing that, and it feels like the world powers are starting to focus on their own localities and locking down the things that they deem to be necessary for them to lock down. So obviously in Russia, you see them waging war in part of Eastern Europe, and really solidifying their empire over there. You have China, who, they've been operating on a different time scale than everyone else for a while now, but they might make a move on Taiwan, or maybe not, but they pretty much have their region of Asia locked down. And now you have the United States working on the Western Hemisphere in South America. Obviously, they kidnapped Maduro. They're stripping Venezuela for the resources. And obviously, they'll probably be laundering a lot of money through Venezuela, through publicly traded companies. And then you have, Mexico, Cuba, other countries now in the conversation that the U.S. might intervene and do something similar. And so, yeah, it's honestly just chaos. You have Iran going through a potential revolution right now. Maybe the Islamic Republic will fall. Who knows? There's a lot of things going on in the Middle East right now. Obviously, the genocide in Palestine, and the Western nations wanting to tokenize the land there, build data centers, set up a complete surveillance state with Palantir and other surveillance technology companies. They're probably, if I had to guess, going to roll out the Orwellian digital tyranny state there first, see how it goes, see what works, see what doesn't work, spread it to Europe, particularly the UK, and places where England still has a lot of influence. And it'll probably seep into more Western nations as well. Obviously, we know China already has their own flavor of this, and Russia as well. But yeah, it's pretty much just chaos everywhere in the world right now. And the established powers are trying to maintain their power, and are expanding in ways that I haven't really seen before. You have talks about the U.S. taking Greenland by force. That would be a huge breach of NATO and just a complete breakdown of the defense apparatus in the West. Yeah, so it's really interesting times. And again, these political events also are inflationary. Like when you operate on a fiat standard and you're trying to fund these military and political operations, the only way you can do it is by printing more monopoly money. You don't actually have an asset to back the money that you're printing other than your people, your people's future. And so we're playing a dangerous game. I think that eventually, it could take decades. It could be after my lifetime, but at some point, the fiat currency, the fiat assets, someone's going to be left holding the bag. There's going to be a reset, and those people are going to get wrecked. So I wouldn't be holding more fiat currency than you absolutely need to. I would be holding things that make you more sovereign, particularly Bitcoin, maybe some precious metals if you'd like on top of that. And then, invest in businesses that you think make the world a better place and that you think you have an asymmetric opportunity, but know that you don't actually own those shares. And they can be taken from you. So you need to structure your financial life in a way that if that were to happen, it wouldn't wreck you. So yeah, it's kind of just what I've been thinking about. I've been thinking a lot about sovereignty, how to become less dependent on the state and centralized systems, and being able to provide for myself and a family in the future. And I'm going to keep working at that. And I'd like to let you all know how it's going as I continue down this path. Maybe I'll do some videos or something in the future where I'm doing gardening or talking about other things or just showing you what I'm doing in my life to make my household more sovereign. Yeah, but for now I'm just rambling into a mic, and sometimes I write things and then read them on this channel. And if you find that interesting or you just want to follow this, then give me a follow, subscribe. I'd appreciate it. But if not, then I'm just going to keep on talking into the void. And I think that that'll be an interesting project for myself. So yeah, I'll cut it here. Really appreciate everyone that listened. If you did and you have any thoughts, let me know. Comment. Let me know what you think, what you thought. what you're thinking about right now. What am I missing? And yeah, I will see you all in the next episode. Thanks.